Okay, here I am, Bill Bushka, on Wednesday afternoon, and just want to talk a little bit about a couple of things. You've probably heard about Section 230 and about Trump's tweets Tuesday night, and I've covered them in some of my blog postings recently. For example, this one, that one, for example. And you can follow many news sites as to what's going on. It doesn't sound like it's going to go anywhere, but nevertheless, it does remind me of the importance of the liability shield that tech companies have and how complicated it is when it comes to moderation and also to business models and to the whole ethical problem behind user-generated content that I've talked about. If this were to fail, and if Section 230 were to be taken away, sites like mine, even this one, or my sites on Blogger, which is owned by Google, might not exist, unless I had a real commercial purpose and could prove that the sites could make money for someone and employ people and so forth. They might not be allowed to exist. And same thing with Twitter. If you couldn't be verified, maybe they wouldn't be allowed. I mean, if you wanted to be heard, you'd have to join an organization and support it. That's something I talked about, I think in early 2018 with this video, the dangerous thought experiment, which it's still true. I mean, that might be the outcome. Tim Pool talked about that in a video yesterday, so I would urge you to look that up too. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the pandemic itself. It's true if you're a young adult and you went to a family gathering, or if you traveled with other people not in your household, you could be a danger to other people, even though you're not going to be sick yourself. This is a novel ethical problem, and you should probably isolate yourself. I'm 77, so I could be one of the vulnerable ones. I feel very strongly, and I don't want to overstate and become self-indulgent with this, but I feel very strongly that I do not want to be a public example of how you become a victim of COVID. If something happens and it's not recoverable, I could be triaged, of course, and die very quickly. And if that happens, I've said I don't want a funeral, I don't even want a public burial, I want no notification. I want this to be quiet because I want to take the responsibility for it myself, because I think we've really had a colossal failure in our society and around the world. We've been humiliated for our individualism by Chinese communism, which has been able to deal with this better. And so if as little as possible were made of my demise, if it happened for people who know me, that might actually teach a lesson, of how we failed and how it's not acceptable to fail. There's something, there's a conflict in my own mind between my political values, which are rather libertarian, sometimes center-right, but I think I'm pretty moderate and reasonable on most of my policies, and how I feel personally. Personally, I feel an individual has a moral obligation to adapt to the world that he or she or they find themselves in. Because nobody has an intrinsic right to be born into a favorable situation, just like nobody has an intrinsic right to travel to the nearest star or something, because it's not physically possible to do it. It's so natural law in a sense means something to me personally, and that creates a conflict because I can get off on it sometime, and getting off and enjoying certain people, even feeling attracted to certain people, and that sometimes contradicts my political values and practice as to what I believe policy should be. And I have to deal with that. But anyway, if something were to happen, it probably would be very sudden, and it would probably be over very sudden. That might be the case. But anyway, that's what I needed to say today. This is a very sobering time. At the beginning of 2022, may very well consolidate all my sites into just one site that is based only on my name. And some of that has to do with trademark issues and other things I've discussed before. And it's going to look very different from this. This is just the old site right now, what it looks like. But that may be something that I'm planning to happen on 2022. But I have to be allowed to do it. I have to be allowed to work on my own without having to belong to an intersectional group and do a quid pro quo and support things that other people want publicly that I don't want anything to do with. So that's where we are right now. So that's my thought for today.